Hey, good people, Davia here, and welcome to an episode of Tales from the Shaker, a Davia Williams Stevenson podcast. You know, I'm always excited about who I get to talk to. And today's episode is, I hope, will be inspiring. We're going to talk about a system that typically gets a bad rap, and we're going to hear some success stories today. I'm talking about the foster care system. An organization, Specialized Alternatives for Families and Youth, SAFY, that comes alongside and partners with families and individuals to reunite them. I think I'm getting the mission right, and to move them forward. So I want to tell you about who my guests are. It's Dr. Charisse Penn and Kelsey, what is your last name? Kelsey Pike. And so I'm going to read a little bit about their bios. And I want to tell you about this program. It really excites me. It warms my heart. And I can't wait for you to meet Kelsey and hear a little bit about her story. So Dr. Penn is SAFY of Ohio's Parent Partner Program Manager. And prior to launching the Parent Partner Program, which I just learned is brand new, started this year, and the first class is coming through starting in November, right? You're taking interviews or something in November. I'm so excited about this. Dr. Penn was the director of SAFY of Ohio's Why Thrive program and a foster parent recruiter within the state of Ohio. And throughout her nearly 5 years with SAFY of Ohio, Dr. Penn has proven to be an integral member of SAFY of Ohio's team. And as a key liaison within the community and with other organizations, Dr. Penn is well-versed in connecting with the communities she serves, building relationships with local businesses, media, churches, and community members. She has extensive experience in program management, community engagement, customer experience, and teaching that brings compassion and enthusiasm to her work. And I love those words, compassion and enthusiasm. And Kelsey's a mama of a 2-year-old daughter.
Yeah, she's 2.
2-year-old daughter. She is a newly hired SAFY parent partner. And we're really excited about that. You're amongst the first. You're a pioneer, girl. Go ahead. For the Partnering with Ohio Parents program in Knox County. She's 30 years old, has a 2-year-old daughter who has some special needs. She was diagnosed earlier this year with cerebral palsy, but she's making great progress.
Yes, she
love
is.
that. And reaching new milestones and continues to just amaze you every day. And I love that. She likes to garden. I like that too. We'll have to talk about that. She likes to garden and spend time outside. And I bet you that's a wonderful thing for your little girl as well. Nature does a lot to calm and to encourage folks. So welcome. I want to first make sure that we get a good understanding, that our audience gets a good understanding of what you do, of what SAFY does and what the Parent Partner Program does. I tried to give a sketch, but I'm sure I didn't fully fill that out. So why don't we start with you, Dr. Penn? Can you tell us a little bit about the mission?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having us today. We appreciate it greatly. Again, SAFY stands for Specialized Alternatives for Families and Youth. We are a 35-year-old plus nonprofit organization that was started in this great state of Ohio, in Delphus, Ohio. Now we've expanded out to 7 different states as well. And then we have 8 divisions here in Ohio. Our services are foster to adopt, older youth services, family preservation, and mental and behavioral health services to our constituents in our counties.
That's really comprehensive. I love that. You know, my bias, of course, when you talked about also mental health support, that's huge. I love that. So you've been with SAFY for about 5 years, but with this new program, so we got a couple of pioneers right here that are going to be setting the tone. The foundation for a program that I assume will grow just like SAFY did. I didn't know it started in Ohio.
Yes.
I thought it was I don't know. I just knew it was available in a number of states. I just I don't know why I wouldn't think that the great state of Ohio would be the ones that started it, but I'm glad you did. Yeah.
Absolutely. We're always pioneers in Ohio.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. I'm sorry. I was just a little behind in that. And Kelsey, so you are going to be a parent partner. What does that mean? What will you do?
As a parent partner, basically what we're going to be doing is kind of supporting the parents that are currently going through the child welfare system with an open case and kind of connecting them with resources, kind of just being, I think, like an ear to listen to, but just kind of like trying to support them in any way they can to try to reunify with their child.
So will you have like individual families that you'll work with?
Yes.
Okay.
I think the idea is to have like a caseload of 4 to 12 families, I think. But yeah, we'll have different individual families. I don't know if we were going to work with like a family as like the 2-parent unit, if they were both going through the case, or if it was more just the single parent. But I think that'll depend on how many other parent partners we can get per county. So it's like evenly spaced, I think. Caseload.
I'm curious, to be a parent partner, and I know you have a unique story, but to be a parent partner, do you have to have been involved in the child welfare system at some point?
Yes, to be a parent partner, it is a requirement to have that lived experience where at some point in time you had an open CPS case and you worked your case plan or your treatment plan with your team and reunified or came up with an alternative plan for permanency for your child or children.
So that's what you did, lady.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You worked your plan.
Yeah.
You got your baby.
Yep.
Got your
Yes, I
baby
did.
back. We were chatting a little bit before we started rolling the cameras, and you said something that really struck me. You said, "Oh, I was going to get her back." Like you had determined that outcome. You visioned that as it motivated you to continue to work through the program and get to where you are. And so, how long have you had her back?
I've officially had her back since I think it was February 1st, I think is when my case like officially concluded. Before then I'd had her like, there's this term, like it's supervised custody or, but it was that I'd had her for, like in my care, but she was still like the custody was still with them since like December or something like that. So she had been with me all the time, but yeah, it's pretty fairly, newly closed case, I guess. But
Well, I imagine that those that have witnessed your and been a part of your journey to closing your case must have great faith in you to say that, no, you are also ready to mentor, to take on mentoring somebody else. So I think that says a lot about not just your determination, but your cooperation. I'm sure your love for your daughter. We talked about how, you shared that your daughter is recently diagnosed with cerebral palsy. And I just want to commend you. I admire your journey and your choice. You chose to love the daughter you have and step into what will have its challenges. I mean, all parenting does. But when you have a child with special needs, there are additional challenges. And I think one of the benefits, and this is just me guessing, and you can speak to this, but of having been a part of a system of case management, you at least have like a sensitivity or an awareness of bringing in a team, right? She might need some specialists in this place, or you might need some help here, or maybe I can find some support there. A lot of people see support as a weakness when actually support is not that. It really is. It really is. It really takes a lot of strength to choose vulnerability and go to the experts and to have somebody come alongside you. I think we're meant to live that way. I personally believe that. So apparently you saw the benefit and all of that. I mean, I know
Yeah.
some things are required, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Like I think with her, I mean, I think it takes like a village to raise a child. With her medical issues specifically, like it took a while for me to like fully, and I still sometimes struggle with it, but to fully wrap my head around what this is going to look like for the future. Because I mean, but I have to also make sure that I don't try to like, close my perspective in on any negativity, but like, the future is open to her. But it took me a while to still kind of adjust to like, hey, I have a child with special needs now. Like, what now? Like, and she has like a team. Like we've got the therapist, we've got the doctors, we've got like the Help Me Grow come out to the house. So we have like a full range of team of support now. And like during the case, like I didn't always look at all of them as like members of a team that were helping us or her. But now that the case is concluded fully, I'm able to kind of look at them more as like support and like, hey, I need help with like a resource for like her, like she didn't like spoons for like the longest time, and like like a feeding specialist or something like that. So like some of them are able to point me in directions of for options we can try to work on whatever that issue might be.
So what I hear in your story, and what I hope that others will receive when they see this conversation is that, well, there's process, and along the way you grew in different ways, and along the way you saw some things that may have felt oppressive. As now looking back, there's a reason why my mother and grandmother and all of them say hindsight is 2020. When you look back, you see the benefit of these things, and now there are tools for you to use. And so that would be hopefully just a nugget of encouragement for somebody that's in the system and feels, like, I don't have control over my life, I don't have access to my kids, all of those kind of things that feel maybe oppressive, or maybe even at times hopeless. But actually, there's a lot of research and a lot of experts and people who care about children and families that have put together these systems. And there is no such thing as a perfect system in any stretch, whether it's a corporation, a family, or whatever. There's always moments where places break down. But if you're mission focused, you have the opportunity, like you did, to start to see things a little bit differently and to grow. And now you're in a position to encourage other people. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
Something else you said, and I try not to, I can't help myself, the counselor part of me comes out every now and then. But you talked about, you try not to focus on the negative, like there's things to be fearful of or what have you. But you know what, whether your life is a piece of cake or whether it's, full of challenges, you only get one day at a time. No matter who you are, you get one day at a time. That's all you got to live, right? And then you look up down the road and you've gone some distance. One day at a time.
Yeah, there was a while there when it was just like, I just got to make it to this next day, and then looking back, I'm like, wow, that was a lot. That was a whole lot of stuff that I went through, but here I am, and we're gonna keep going.
Yeah. I don't want to feel, well, my kids are your age, so you said you're 30, so I can't help but feel a little bit of those kind of, oh, this is my daughter, yeah, she could be my daughter, kind of age, and so I don't want it to sound condescending when I just say I'm so proud of you. I'm just proud of you. I've only spent 30 minutes in your presence, really, and I'm grateful for your daughter, to have a determined mother as a model. I think there's going to be a lot of good days for you.
Thank you.
And I think you're in a great position to let other mothers in your position see that there are going to be a lot of good days ahead for you. What would you say, looking back, to say your 18-year-old self? Like, what would you say to her to...
I would say trust yourself. If you are like a spiritual person, trust God and believe in the highest good always. And even though it's hard to keep that perspective sometimes when life tries to knock those glasses off of you, but you always have to keep the best in mind, stay positive.
Yeah, no, I feel you, and it's a choice, right? It's not always easy to do. Yeah. So Charisse, why is this your passion? What drew you to this line of work? You're Dr. Charisse Penn. Clearly you're capable of doing a whole bunch of things. And you're pouring into families with deficits. Why?
Well, you're absolutely right. My dream was, one day I'll be a community college president or vice president or provost. And that was the dream. And that's where I was headed and going. And in education, you have to have all the alphabet soup behind your name to even be considered for that role. But something shifted. And I think I just love helping families. I love helping people in general. And if you have a goal, if you're a person that says, I have a goal and I hear that you have a goal and you need help, I'm going to be there to help you fulfill that dream or that goal. We're going to have a plan. We're going to have an action plan. I'm going to make sure that you accomplish that. And I just love seeing people meet their goals and serving people. My mom and dad were like that. They served people. Other mentors, they serve people. And I think when you serve people, it's for the better good of society and for families.
So you just chose, sounded like that was kind of your motivation anyway, being a provost at a college. You're helping people move forward in their academic careers onto their professional careers. You're still helping. You just went another level. And you're helping people even with fundamental needs, right? so that they could see themselves maybe at the community college, right? Before you even get to the community college. I think that's amazing. It's the same ethos.
Yes.
You didn't change personalities.
Yes.
But you poured it into more vulnerable population. I really respect that.
Yeah, absolutely. Who I always think, who told you couldn't have? Who told you couldn't do? Like, who said that? Who said that to you? You don't let people's words, especially negative words or negative seeds, grow in you to the point where you're paralyzed and you're frozen and you can't move forward in your purpose. You have to be able to move forward in your purpose. And we all have a purpose. And it's going to take other people believing and seeing and making healthy deposits in you of words and actions and deeds to help you along. There's nothing that you cannot accomplish. You have goals. You can fulfill those goals. They're not too far away, even though society, sometimes or family members or coworkers might want you to believe that they're so distant, but they're really not as far off as we know that they are.
Have you ever been, I imagine, first of all, I'm thinking, okay, I can see career number 2 or 3 for Dr. Penn. Motivational speakers probably somewhere in that space, because and I could just see it in your eyes when you were saying, who told you? Because unfortunately there are people who have been told you can't, and you're not, and you won't, and to hear a message like yours or see a story like Kelsey's that debunk that, oh no, actually you can, and you may not even consider that because nobody told you or nobody modeled that for you. I lived in Chicago when we kind of first started out our marriage. I was in grad school and we moved there and had our kids, and we did some kind of work in the inner city. There were kids in Chicago who lived a mile or so from the lake, from Lake Michigan, huge Lake Michigan, who never been to the lake. Wow. Because their vision was limited to their communities. And what you did in your community is on Friday nights, you sat on the floor because that's when people were shooting. So you sat on the floor and watched TV, on Saturdays, you ventured out, but you stayed in your community. And so seeing other ways of envisioning or other things you could do, or people who survived or gained skills outside of those that were only in that small community, the depressed community, there weren't folks telling you can or you will or it's possible. And sometimes all it took was getting a mile down. A mile is 8 blocks east to the lake, And so that's my vision when I see what you're doing. Like you're saying, the lake is right there. It's 8 blocks down. Right. Maybe we can get you on a bus to the lake, or we can just take a half hour and walk. I don't know. This excites me. I felt like I had a couple notes. There was something I wanted to ask you. Let me see if I can find it. Oh yeah. So you talked about trying to stay positive, focus on the positive, and where your faith was a part of it. But what type of barriers? Because that's practical as well. You're going to be dealing with people who are having to overcome barriers. What kind of barriers did you find yourself having to push through?
I guess the barriers that I had to overcome kind of would be, I don't know, maybe my attitude or my knowledge of how everything worked, during that time. Because I was like inundated with a lot of negativity from them, where it was like, my case, they wanted, I guess it was based off of, they essentially were trying to say that I was like mentally incompetent of taking care of her, because of how the situation went where I lost custody of her. But like, I don't think they really, we're taking in like the big picture, of like what I was dealing with like before then, like what led to this, like, does she have postpartum, any of this, like, it was a very traumatic time when, at 3 weeks old, when she got sick, basically, and it came out of nowhere. Like no one saw this coming. So I was dealing with all of that, and then for them to sit there and say like, oh, we're sending you to this counselor, so you can be diagnosed with, whatever she comes up with. It was hard for me to kind of like wrap my head around, like, why are you trying to say like I have like a mental deficit when I have been through like some really, I don't know, substantial stuff, like, so it was hard for me to kind of like see them as anything but bad guys during all of this. And I'm like, I'm not going to accept this label. Like the counselor I went to, I met with her 3 times, and like I was trying to do the case plan. Like they're like, you have to go get an assessment. I'm like, okay. I went with the first person I knew of, and so I went with her, met with her 3 times, and she came back. Like I didn't get to read the assessment before we were in court, because she got it to me like that morning, and she had come up with all of this, like everything I told her in like the 3 times I met with her was like turned into this profile of like this, I don't know, like a monster, like, and it was terrible. I don't know. I've never.
Was there ever an assessment for just trauma?
No. Like, and that's the thing. Like, in some of the trainings that we've done for this job, like I've learned about how like there's a difference between a screening and an assessment. Like a screening is when you're initially kind of like, hey, is there maybe like a mental factor here or something? And then the assessment's kind of like, all right, well, which one is it? So like the courts ordered me to go get an assessment. So I was coming out of that with an assessment, no matter what, with a diagnosis. Like, I just don't think that's the right way to go about it. Like she wrote down, I think, she put down, possible borderline, I want to say bipolar or something like that. And then oppositional defiant disorder and like all of this stuff, like, but it wasn't even concrete. I'm like, how can you assess somebody after meeting them 3 times? I'm like, I don't think I'm any of these things. Like my whole life leading up to this, like, wouldn't lead me to believe I have any of these things. Like, but I was going through a really rough time. So a lot of maybe my behavior and actions and words might have kind of appeared like, hey, there might be something here, but no one really wanted to, I don't know, like look at what might have led up to this point. Like, why is she acting and saying the things that she's doing? She's upset. Like there's some issues behind it. And so it was really hard for me to kind of like kind of accept what they wanted me to, like, oh, you got to go get counseling for your mental problems. I'm like, I don't have mental problems. Like, like I've had some like difficulties with housing and trauma with her being sick and just lack of support, like no family, you know what I mean? Like it was hard for me to kind of accept that and move forward and just do what they wanted me to do to get her back,
Not to mention what your body goes through when you have a baby.
Oh yeah.
It takes about a year for your hormones and then you have your baby and she's taken. I'm assuming, was she taken pretty quickly, or I don't know how that went.
No. Like,
okay, good.
No, I had her and everything was fine. I mean, I was still homeless at the time I had her. But after that, I found, it was like, my ex's mom, like that was the only place I had to go. So I was out there staying with her, and at 3 weeks old, all of a sudden, like the day came that we had to take her to the hospital. It just was out of nowhere. Like it was so scary. Like I noticed like that day that she wasn't really like eating well, and she just kind of seemed a little bit like lethargic. By 5 o'clock that day, like I went to go pick her up because, the lady I was staying with, Jody, she had her. She was watching her for a couple hours. I went to go pick her up, and she was limp like a rag doll. I was like, I went to go pick her up. I'm like, huh. Like she was like a little rag doll. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is bad. Because I was like, this is something neurological. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I took her in, and she's being life flighted to Children's. And she has like a virus had gone to her brain and was causing. Yeah, and she was on life support, all of that, and a month and a half we got out of that, and then once we were discharged, I'm like, I'm still trying to take in everything that has happened, and that's when things started to fall out between me and the lady I was staying with, to the point where like I was sitting out there in her driveway, like trying to call the shelter, the local shelter, and they were like, well, we can't help you. I'm like, okay. Like, I had no real options. Like, I didn't know what to do. And it got to the point where someone had paid for a hotel room for like a couple nights or something, but I knew I couldn't stay there forever, like I didn't have any income. I didn't have any family members. I didn't know what else there was that I could have done.
So what was the turn for you then? Like you said that there were all of these factors. I'm assuming is the system. You say they, is the system that you now see a little differently. I'm sure those times were challenging for sure. I'm hearing a lot. There's a whole lot that could be your diagnosis. That's not just, those. People have jobs to do. Imagine there's a caseload and you've got to crank some people out. So maybe there wasn't the most thorough. I don't know this clinician or any of that. But sounds like your story has some of all the elements, some of the dysfunction. Sometimes that happens in a system, in all systems, that oftentimes seems to be the reputation of those things around child welfare. I think those are not the norm. Probably there are more good outcomes than bad ones. We don't get to hear about those. And that's what makes this conversation with you special, in that you absolutely had to interface with some of the stuff that didn't work so well. But somehow, somewhere along the way, you stopped believing that you were mentally ill. That's an important part there. If you don't believe it, because you could succumb to that, and then that would have been another limiting factor. Now, I do believe, right? I think everybody's going to have a clinically significant episode of something. Your story would warrant depression or anxiety, right?
Like that would be I would totally agree with that, because I was distraught at times, you know what I mean? And they were seeing like all these behaviors and maybe, maybe outburst or whatever. And like, have you never seen a parent who's upset or angry, at this situation? But it's just like, to me, like, I don't know, what kind of still bothers me is like how much of a difference you can get from one clinician to another, like the varying opinions, like that there's not a solid, like you can go to one and they'll give you this diagnosis or list of potential diagnoses. And then you can go to a different one, which I later did after I met with this initial one. I'm like, well, I'm not going back there. You know what I mean? I'm like, no, I'm not going back there. So I found a different one. And I think she had like a doctorate. She was on that level, and she diagnosed me with adjustment disorder. And I'm like, okay, I can deal with that. So from then on, I did my counseling with her, and I had a much better experience with her because I felt like she was non-judgmental. I felt like she wasn't like outdated in her views. Like the one I had previously been to, kind of like, I should have brought in like some samples, but I'm like, I won't look at that assessment because I'll put myself down in a dark hole. Like I won't do it.
That's not how we're operating right now, right? That's not the space that you're living in. And I will say an adjustment disorder is like, everybody has an adjustment disorder. Like, seriously, there's a new thing I have to adjust to.
Yes. Right.
That was always my favorite, my go-to beginning diagnosis for anybody, because you got to put a number in the...
It's a placeholder.
Almost. It's a placeholder.
Maybe.
It is.
Okay.
It is. I think so. I'm not that it's not legit, because an adjustment disorder could be, what you're adjusting to could be very, very difficult. Yes. But yeah, I think I love that. It is kind of a placeholder. And there are those where that can remain the place until you have adjusted.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And now you've made some adjusting. I really hate that it was so hard and that you felt labeled, and that, the system that you're now going to assist people through felt, abusive. Maybe that wasn't your word, but that's the one
I felt violated.
Yeah.
To like the most degree. I don't even know, but and I still do. Like it's still something that kind of haunts me. It was like I should have brought in like some samples of the stuff that she wrote in. I really should have, but
no, that's okay. I'm good. Because I think, why do you need that?
To feel validated, I guess. I don't know.
Well, you are very much validated with what you're doing. You have your daughter. You are being part of piloting this program that will assist other parents to move forward in their lives. Like, what is more validating than to have taken an experience that had elements of trauma, elements of invalidation, fear, all of those things, and somehow, and not just somehow, through your work and through the efforts of those, when you got with the right team, the right team for you, you're moving forward. And I think that I hate you went through that, but I think that that's going to turn out to be a benefit for you in this new role. That you can recognize if one of the parents that you partner with has been through a number of things, the wrong clinician for them, and you can recognize it and not enter into panic with them. You say, you don't have to panic about this. Yeah. This can happen. You can validate where you had been invalidated, right? And then show them the next things. I don't think anything is wasted. Even the most dark situations, it's not wasted unless you choose to waste it. You have not chosen to waste it. And you will be able to encourage others not to choose to waste even the toughest of circumstances. There's a resilience in you, yes, and a choice to be able to choose hope, to recognize that you can choose hope, that your daughter will glam onto. Absolutely. I'm very proud of you. And I do hate that you went through that, but is there a purpose for you to keep that paperwork? That's not your working diagnosis.
I guess to me, in my mind, like I don't know, like I'd like to write a grievance against this woman, because if you could just see the way that she wrote her assessment, like it is not ethical. Like she wrote it in like this victim shaming, outdated kind of like, it just like she would take my words and twist them, and like, and I should have known something was kind of up with the meetings with her, when she was like, well, what did you do on your time when you were homeless? Like, what did you do to survive? And what all about this? And how many sexual partners have you had and stuff like that? And it was just like very, very, I don't know, like inappropriate, outdated, like kind of maybe reflects like the mindset of like a small insulated rural town, like, which is just not modern. Like, you know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like I play with the idea of doing that.
Yeah, that may be part of what you do at some point, in your space of advocacy. You may have a gatekeeping type of role that, okay, you know what, we need to also keep an eye out for those clinicians who are not staying updated with, which to maintain a license, you actually have to. You have to take,
yes,
but that doesn't mean you choose to employ those things that you learn. You still get to choose that. So, okay, so you have a purpose. I thought if it's just there and it just brings you down, then let's not. But if at some point in your story, and there's no rush, that you want to expose, kinks in the system that are harmful to people that throw up barriers, meaning to or not, then that may be a big part of the role that you play at some point in time. But you got time.
Yeah, with this one, like I don't get it out and look at it every day. Like I probably haven't looked at it since all that was going on. But like I have thought, like I would like to, I don't know, at least like speak out against this one particular lady. So I like throughout the time, since all that happened, like I have met 2 other people that have had like a similar bad experience with this counselor. So I'm like, it's not just me, and I'm validated in this, because one, I was working at Goodwill, and my manager there, she's like, oh, I know her. Like, and she had a very similar, very bad experience. And I feel like this lady is kind of like, she has used like her position, like her platform to do harm to people, where she, like, that's not what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be helping people and doing no harm. If you can't help them, do them no harm.
That is the oath that we take. That is the first level is do no harm. And there are bad apples in every single. There are, and I hate that you had to have one. And maybe that's what you do at some point. So we have to wrap up soon, and I just want to be sure that people get the mission of the Parent Partner Program, that they see the benefit of the Parent Partner Program, that they're excited about it. This is a new program, which I didn't realize. I love the idea, but I think peer work really does help. I think it really does. And I think you'll be an amazing partner given all that you've been through. What would you, if you had an opportunity to speak to a mom out there you haven't met yet, who may be going through some tough things, right? She's experiencing some barriers. She feels invalidated. How would you encourage her through the Parent Partner Program? Like, what would you say? How would you give her some hope or some direction?
First of all, I would just say keep going. Just don't just think about the end of the gate. Like think of what you are doing this for is your child, your children. And then I would be like, hey, if you need to talk and like you don't have a voice or a platform that they're giving you to listen to anything, if you need to vent, I am here to listen. If you like, what does your case plan look like? What do we need to do here? Like, what are the steps here? How can I connect you to anything local that you haven't maybe heard of already, And then, just keep the hope and keep going. Like,
keep going. Yeah. Because when I used to say, I'm going to mess it up. What did I used to say? Say you have a wheelbarrow, right? You have to put the wheels down for it to move. You can change direction, but if you leave the wheels down, you can't move at all. So pick them up, start moving. You might find a new bump here, but you can move if you put the wheels up. And so maybe that's part of your role with folks, to help them put the wheel down on their life or their metaphorical wheelbarrow, and get to the place where their family is whole. Yeah. Charisse, you got anything to add?
Well, I do want to share that at SAFY, we believe in preserving families and securing futures. That's our mission. In this parent partner work, we have 2 goals. And the number 1 goal is to reunify families. That's the number 1 goal. The second goal is to decrease the probability of families re-abusing or neglecting or maltreatment of their children. So those are our 2 goals. It's really, really simple. So we want to preserve families.
I love it. The families really are they're the bedrock of our society. They really are.
Absolutely.
And it's noble work. And I really thank you for being candid with me, Kelsey, and sharing what was rough and how you chose to keep moving forward and now give back. I think that's amazing. And hearing Dr. Penn's passion for people in general and moving them toward their goals and toward wholeness. I love that. I sync with that. And so I hope that when folks listen to this conversation, that they'll see something round and authentic. They'll see legit struggle. We know that there are families who have struggles, moms who have struggles, dads who have struggles, who sometimes find themselves in a place where they need the assistance of an organization. Okay, thank goodness there's an organization or organizations with people. People are flawed. Sometimes things go just as planned and sometimes they don't. But there's an opportunity, if you choose, to engage a process and to keep your vision ahead of you, where you can end up reunified with your family and moving forward and maybe even reach back and pull somebody with you. That's the message, I think, that is powerful. And so I thank you for sharing it with me. And I look forward to folks hearing this conversation. And we're going to share the website is SAFY, SAFY.org. When this airs, there'll be graphics at the end and folks will be able to grab it so they can learn about the Parent Partner Program and hopefully support it.
Absolutely.
Support but with their dollars.
Yes, ma'am.
No, that's real. You've got to pay good staff.
Yes.
Right? We want good staff. And you've got to keep the lights on. And so that's important to do the work. So thank you. We are drinking. We're going to cheers the end of our conversation. We just have a little tea here that my mom used to make something similar. She called it Russian tea. We don't know why. We don't even know if that's real. If you were alive, I'd have you correct that for me. But I use just some tea that I found, some brewed tea that was already made, some orange juice. I steeped some cloves and then topped it with a little ginger ale, and I just stuck some thyme in there to look pretty. So cheers to you ladies. Let's see if we can clink. Get around you have to sip after you cheers. I got the thyme in my mouth. Anyway, thank you for joining us on this episode of Tales from the Shaker, a Davia Williams Stevenson podcast. You take care.